I've never touched a woman in 46 years. Ethan Cole said it to himself every night. A vow, a prison, a truth no one would believe, until the storm brought her to his gate. Blood poured from her side. Rain hammered the iron bars. She collapsed against the metal, screaming his name through the thunder. Ethan Cole, please. Behind her, gunfire shattered the night. Russian voices shouted. Footsteps splashed closer. She had seconds left. And Ethan Cole, the man who built walls around his soul, made a choice that would destroy everything. He opened the gate, he crossed the distance, and for the first time in 46 years, he touched her. So, before this story rips you apart, hit subscribe and stay until the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this goes. Now brace yourself. Lena felt the bullet before she heard it. A punch to her ribs. Sharp. Burning. Wrong. She stumbled forward, her hand flying to her side, and when she pulled it back, her palm was slick with blood, dark warm spreading fast across her white diner uniform. No, she gasped. No, no, no. The second shot cracked past her ear. She ran. Her sneakers slapped against wet pavement, rain hammering her face, her vision blurring with every step. The city lights behind her bled into streaks of color, neon signs, street lamps, headlights, all of it melting into the storm. She didn't know where she was running, only that she couldn't stop. A voice shouted behind her in Russian. Найди ее, она не может уйти далеко. Find her, she can't get far. Lena's breath came in ragged sobs. Her side screamed with every movement, the pain spreading through her ribs like fire. But she pushed harder, her legs burning, her heart slamming against her chest. Then she saw it. The iron gate, 12 feet tall, black, intimidating, with a stone wall stretching endlessly in both directions. Ethan Cole's estate. Everyone in this city knew about it. The fortress where the untouchable man lived alone. The place where no one entered. Ever. Lena hit the gate hard, her bloody hands gripping the wet metal, her knees buckling. Help! She screamed into the storm. Somebody help me! Nothing. Just rain. Just darkness. Just the sound of footsteps getting closer behind her. Ethan Cole. She didn't know why she said his name. Desperation, maybe. Insanity. Please, Ethan Cole. The floodlights exploded to life. Lena flinched, blinded by the sudden whiteness, her hands flying up to shield her eyes. The heat from the lights hit her face, and for one impossible second, she thought she'd died. Then she saw him, walking toward her through the rain like a ghost materializing from smoke. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black, moving with a calm that didn't belong in chaos. Ethan Cole. The man who controlled this entire city without ever raising his voice. The man who ended empires with a phone call. The man who, according to every whispered rumor, had never been photographed with a woman, never been seen dating, never been touched. And he was walking straight toward her. Lena's knees gave out. She hit the ground hard, the impact jarring through her bones, her vision swimming. Blood pooled beneath her, mixing with the rainwater, spiraling down the drain beside the gate. The gate unlocked with a metallic click. She heard it swing open. Heard footsteps. Then hands, strong, steady, terrifyingly gentle, slipped beneath her shoulders and knees, lifting her off the wet pavement like she weighed nothing. Lena's head fell against something solid. His chest. She could hear his heartbeat. Slow, controlled, completely calm. Don't close your eyes, Ethan said. His voice was low, firm, absolute. Not a request, a command. Lena forced her eyes open, her vision flickering, and she caught a glimpse of his face. Sharp jaw, dark eyes, no expression. Nothing, just cold focus. Who shot you? He asked. I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't know. How many? 4, maybe 5. Ethan's arms tightened around her. Marcus. A second figure appeared at the gate, massive, scarred, holding a gun, like it was an extension of his hand. Marcus Vale. The enforcer, the weapon, the man who did Ethan's dirty work without hesitation. 4 hostiles, Ethan said. Russian, armed, handle it. Marcus didn't ask questions. He disappeared into the rain, and seconds later, Lena heard gunfire, sharp, methodical, brutal. Ethan kept walking. He carried her through the gate, across a stone pathway lit by motion sensors, past hedges trimmed into perfect geometric lines. The estate opened up around them like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Massive, cold, beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. "Stay awake," Ethan said again. "I'm trying," Lena whispered. "Try harder." He kicked open the front door and stepped into warmth. Lena gasped as heat washed over her, the shock of it almost worse than the cold. Her body convulsed, trembling violently, and Ethan moved faster, carrying her through a marble entryway into a sitting room, where he laid her on a leather couch. She tried to sit up, his hand pressed against her shoulder firm, but not rough, keeping her down. "Don't move," he said. Lena stared up at him, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan didn't answer. He turned away, walking to a cabinet across the room, and when he came back, he had a medical kit in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other. Lena's stomach dropped. "Wait, this will hurt," Ethan said. He poured the whiskey directly onto the wound. The scream tore out of Lena's throat before she could stop it, raw, animal, desperate. Pain exploded through her side, white hot and blinding, and she arched off the couch, her hands clawing at the leather. Ethan didn't flinch. He pressed gauze against the wound, his movements fast and efficient, wrapping bandages around her torso with practiced precision. "Breathe through it," he said. "I can't." "You can." Lena forced air into her lungs, her vision going dark at the edges, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to scream again, wanted to beg him to stop, but she bit down hard on her lip and tasted blood. Ethan tied off the bandage and sat back, studying her with those unreadable dark eyes. "You'll live," he said. Lena gasped, her whole body trembling. "That's it. You'll live. What else do you want me to say?" "Maybe I'm sorry for pouring alcohol on an open gunshot wound." Ethan's expression didn't change. "I'm not." Before Lena could respond, the front door opened. Marcus walked in, rain dripping from his coat, blood splattered across his knuckles. He looked at Ethan and gave a single nod. "3 down," Marcus said. "1 escaped." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Find him." "Already tracking." Marcus glanced at Lena, his scarred face giving nothing away, then left without another word. Silence filled the room. Lena stared at Ethan, her heart still racing, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. "You killed them," she whispered. "Marcus killed them," Ethan corrected. "Same thing." "Not to me." Lena's breath hitched. "Who are you?" Ethan stood, adjusting his cuffs like they'd just finished a business meeting. "Someone who doesn't like uninvited guests." "Then why did you let me in?" He stopped. For the first time, something shifted in his expression, something she couldn't read. "I don't know yet," he said quietly. Then he walked out of the room, leaving Lena alone with her blood-soaked uniform and 1,000 questions she didn't know how to ask. When Lena woke, the pain hit first, sharp, deep, radiating through her entire right side. She groaned, her eyes fluttering open, and for a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered. The gate. The gunfire. Ethan Cole lifting her like she was made of glass. She sat up slowly, wincing, and took in her surroundings. The room was enormous. 4-poster bed with dark silk sheets. A fireplace that looked like it had never been used. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden so perfect it looked fake. And she wasn't wearing her uniform anymore. Someone had changed her. Panic flared in her chest. She looked down at herself, soft cotton shirt, loose pants, everything fitting perfectly. The bandages around her torso were clean, professional, tight. Someone had been in this room while she slept. Someone had touched her. The thought made her skin crawl. She slid out of bed, her bare feet sinking into plush carpet, and walked to the window. Outside, the garden stretched endlessly. Hedges, fountains, flowers she didn't recognize. And surrounding it all, a 12-foot stone wall topped with cameras. No way out. A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she said, her voice hoarse. The door opened and a woman stepped inside. Tall, lean, sharp, ice blue eyes that seemed to see straight through skin and bone into whatever truth you were hiding. "Lena Brooks," the woman said. It wasn't a question. "Who are you?" Lena asked. "Raven Knox." The woman moved to the window, her gaze sweeping the garden like she was calculating angles. "I handle information for Ethan." Information, data, secrets, the things people bury. Raven turned to face her. He asked me to look into you. Lena's stomach dropped. And, and you're nobody, Raven said bluntly. Waitress. No record, no family, no connections, which makes you either very unlucky or very good at hiding. I'm not hiding anything. Raven's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Everyone's hiding something. Not me. Then why did you have this? Raven held up a small black flash drive. Lena's breath caught. Where did you? Your apron pocket. Ethan found it. Raven tossed the drive in the air and caught it. Military-grade encryption, financial records, shipping manifests, names, coordinates. Coordinates for what? Raven's smile vanished. Human trafficking routes, she said. The room tilted. Lena grabbed the edge of the bed, her knees going weak, her mind racing. Joseph, the old man who came to the diner every Thursday, always the corner booth, always black coffee and toast, always alone. He'd seemed so harmless. He gave this to me to protect it, Lena whispered. Or to protect you, Raven said. Either way, you're in the middle of a war now. I didn't ask to be. Doesn't matter. Raven walked to the door, then stopped. Ethan wants to see you downstairs. Now. What if I say no? Raven glanced back, and this time her eyes were pure ice. Then Marcus carries you down, she said. Your choice. Lena followed Raven through hallways that felt like tunnels. Every door was closed. Every window was tinted. Every corner had a camera watching. This wasn't a home. It was a cage dressed up as luxury. They descended into what looked like a war room. Screens everywhere, live feeds from the estate's city maps, financial charts, security grids. And in the center of it all, Ethan Cole standing in front of the largest screen, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't turn when Lena entered, but she knew he'd heard her. Sit, he said. Lena sat. Ethan finally turned, and for the first time she saw something in his expression. Not warmth, not kindness, calculation. Tell me about Joseph Carver, he said. Lena swallowed. He was a regular, came in every Thursday for 6 months. Did he talk about his work? No, he just existed, read the paper, drank his coffee. And the day he gave you the drive, Lena closed her eyes, remembering. He looked terrified, kept checking the door. When I brought his coffee, he grabbed my wrist and shoved the drive into my palm, told me not to open it, told me to keep it safe. Did he say why? No, he just said, her voice cracked. They're coming. Then he left. And the next day, Ethan asked. He was dead. Car accident. That's what the news said. It wasn't an accident, Raven said from across the room. Lena's head snapped toward her. How do you know? Because Joseph Carver was FBI, Raven said. Undercover, investigating a trafficking ring that's been operating in this city for 3 years. The air left Lena's lungs. He was a Fed. And now he's dead, Ethan said, which means whoever killed him knows he passed the drive to someone. Lena's hands trembled. What do I do? Ethan stepped closer. Too close. She could smell rain still clinging to his clothes. Could see the exact moment his gaze dropped to the bandages visible beneath her shirt. You stay here, he said quietly. You do what I tell you, and you don't leave until I say it's safe. And if it's never safe, Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. He just turned back to the screen, and Lena realized with cold certainty that she just stepped into something she couldn't escape. A war she didn't understand, with a man who'd never touched anyone. Until her. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence press against her eardrums. Every creak of the house made her flinch. Every shadow that moved across the window made her heart race. She kept seeing Joseph's face, the way he'd grabbed her wrist, the terror in his eyes. They're coming, and now they were here. Somewhere in this city, men with guns were hunting for a flash drive she didn't understand, containing secrets she'd never asked to keep. She rolled onto her side, wincing as pain flared through her ribs, and stared at the door. It wasn't locked. She'd checked 3 times, but that didn't mean she could leave. Around 4 a.m, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Slow, deliberate, stopping right outside her door. Lena held her breath. The footsteps moved on. When dawn finally broke, she gave up pretending to rest and got out of bed. Someone had left clothes in the closet, simple, expensive, all in her exact size. Black jeans, white shirt, a sweater that felt like it cost more than her monthly rent. She dressed carefully, avoiding mirrors, and opened the door. The hallway was empty. She walked slowly, following the path Raven had taken the night before, until she found the stairs leading down to the war room. Voices drifted up. Ethan's voice, low, controlled, and another voice she didn't recognize. Male, rough, angry. "You're making a mistake," the stranger said. "I don't make mistakes," Ethan replied. "She's a liability, you know that. She's information. She's bait, and when they come for her, because they will come, you are putting everyone here at risk." Lena froze on the stairs. "Let them come," Ethan said quietly. Silence. Then the stranger laughed sharp, bitter. "You've gone soft. Get out, Victor. This isn't over." "Yes," Ethan said. "It is." Footsteps moved toward the stairs. Lena backed up quickly, pressing herself against the wall, her heart hammering. A man emerged from below, tall, gray-haired, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He glanced at her as he passed, his eyes cold and assessing. Then he was gone. Lena waited until she couldn't hear his footsteps anymore before descending the rest of the way. Ethan stood in front of the screens, his back to her, hands in his pockets. "You heard," he said. Not a question. "Who was that?" Lena asked. "Someone who used to matter." "He said I'm bait." Ethan turned to face her. "You are Brun." The bluntness of it hit her like a slap. "So you're just going to use me," she said. "I'm going to keep you alive long enough to find out who's hunting you, and bam." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "If that counts as using you, then yes." Lena's hands curled into fists. "I want to leave." "No, you don't. You don't get to tell me what I want. You want to walk out that gate?" Ethan stepped closer. "Fine, I'll have Marcus drive you back to your apartment. You'll last maybe 12 hours before they find you. Maybe less." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." His voice dropped. "Because I know how these people work. I know what they do to loose ends. And right now, you're the loosest end they have." Lena's breath caught. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but she couldn't, because deep down she knew he was right. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "The truth of it," Ethan said. "All of it. Everything Joseph told you. Everything you saw. Everything you remember." "I already told you everything." "No, you told me what you think I wanted to hear." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "Now tell me what you're afraid to say." Lena's throat tightened. She looked away, her mind racing, and then the words came tumbling out before she could stop them. "He said my stepfather was involved." Ethan went very still. "What? The last thing Joseph said to me." Lena's voice cracked. "Before he gave me the drive. He said your stepfather wasn't who you thought he was." Ethan's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. "Your stepfather," he repeated slowly. "What was his name?" "Daniel Brooks. He died 8 years ago. Car accident." "Another car accident." Lena's stomach twisted. "You think—" "I don't think anything yet." Ethan pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "But I'm going to find out." He turned back to the screens, his fingers flying across a keyboard, and within seconds, files began populating the display. Daniel Brooks. Her stepfather's face stared back at her from a driver's license photo. Older, grayer than she remembered, but unmistakable. Then more files appeared. Financial records, travel logs, phone records, all of it marked with red flags. "Jesus," Lena breathed. "He was moving money," Ethan said, his voice flat. "Lots of it, through dummy corporations, offshore accounts, and look at the dates." He zoomed in on a timeline. The transactions stopped exactly 8 years ago, the same month Daniel died. "He wasn't just involved," Ethan said. "He was running part of it." Lena's knees went weak. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself, her vision swimming. "No," she whispered. "No, he wouldn't." "He did." "You don't know that. You don't know him." Ethan turned to face her, and for the first time, something almost like sympathy flickered in his eyes. "I know men like him," he said quietly, "and I know what they're capable of." Lena's breath came in short, sharp gasps. She wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to tear the screens off the wall and pretend none of this was real. But it was real, and it was getting worse. Why didn't Joseph just go to the police? She asked, her voice breaking. Because the police are part of it, Raven said. Lena spun around. Raven stood in the doorway holding a tablet, her expression grim. I finished decrypting the rest of the drive, Raven said. You need to see this. She handed the tablet to Ethan. His face went completely blank. What? Lena demanded. What is it? Ethan didn't answer. He just turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a list of names, police captains, district attorneys, city council members, and at the bottom, highlighted in red, Detective Harrow Pike. Lena's blood went cold. Harrow, she whispered. She knew that name. Detective Pike had come to the diner twice after Joseph's death, asking questions. He'd seemed concerned, professional, kind even. He'd told her to call him if she remembered anything unusual. He's working for them, Raven said. Has been in for 2 years. Lena's hands started shaking. He questioned me, she said, after Joseph died. He asked if Joseph had given me anything. Ethan's jaw tightened. What did you tell him? Nothing. I didn't know what Joseph had given me. I didn't even know it was important. He knows now, Raven said. He has to. You're the only person Joseph had contact with in the 48 hours before he died. Which means Pike is looking for you, Ethan finished. Lena's breath came faster. He's a cop, she said desperately. He can do whatever he wants, Ethan interrupted, because no one's watching him. Before Lena could respond, the screens behind Ethan flickered. All of them. At once. Then they went black. Ethan moved instantly, his hand going to a gun Lena hadn't realized he was carrying. Raven, he said sharply. I'm on it. Raven's fingers flew across her tablet. Someone's trying to breach our network. Can you stop it? I am stopping it, but they're good, really good. The screens flickered back to life. But instead of security feeds and financial charts, a single image filled every display. A photograph of Lena, taken yesterday, outside the diner, blood draining from her side, running toward Ethan's gate, and beneath the image, a message in blocky red letters, "We know where she is." Lena's heart stopped. Raven, Ethan said, his voice deadly calm. Lock it down, now. Already on it. Marcus appeared in the doorway so fast it was like he'd been waiting. Perimeter? Ethan asked. Secure, no movement. Double the guards, no one in or out without my authorization. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Ethan turned to Lena, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something in his eyes that looked almost like fear. Not for himself, for her. They're coming, he said quietly. Lena's voice came out as a whisper. When? Soon. How soon? Ethan didn't answer. He just looked at the screens where Lena's terrified face stared back at them from a dozen different angles. And Lena realized with cold, absolute certainty, she wasn't just bait. She was already caught. The hours that followed blurred together. Marcus turned the estate into a fortress. Guards appeared from nowhere, 6, 8, 10 of them, patrolling the grounds with military precision. The gate was reinforced. The cameras were tripled. Every window on the first floor was sealed with steel shutters. Lena watched it all from the war room, feeling like she was disappearing. Like she'd stopped being a person and become a problem to solve. Raven worked in silence, her fingers never stopping, her face illuminated by the glow of half a dozen screens. Ethan paced, back and forth, back and forth. His phone rang 4 times in an hour. He answered none of them. Ethan, Raven said suddenly. He stopped mid-step. What? I found something. She pulled up a new file, encrypted communications between Detective Pike and an unknown number. They're planning a raid, Raven said. Official, legal, warrant and everything. Ethan's expression darkened. On what grounds? Harboring a fugitive. Lena's stomach dropped. I'm not a fugitive. You are now, Raven said. They filed a report this morning, said you were wanted for questioning in connection with Joseph Carver's death, said you fled the scene of a shooting last night, said you're armed and dangerous. That's insane. It's effective, Ethan said coldly. Now they can come for you legally, and I can't stop them without exposing everything I've built. So what do we do? Lena asked. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said the last thing she expected. We give them what they want. Lena's blood went cold. What? Not you, Ethan clarified. The drive. We copy it, plant the copy, let them think they've won. And then what? Then we find out who's really running this operation. Ethan's gaze was ice, and we end them. Raven looked up sharply. That's not a small move, Ethan. I don't make small moves. This will start a war. Good, Ethan said quietly. I'm tired of playing defense. Lena's hands trembled. She looked at Ethan at the cold calculation in his eyes, the absolute certainty in his posture, and she realized something that terrified her. He wasn't just protecting her, Byron. He was using her as an excuse to do what he'd wanted to do all along, burn it all down. I need air, Lena said suddenly. You can't leave this room, Ethan said. I need 5 minutes. Please. Ethan studied her, then nodded toward a door on the far side of the room. Balcony, stay where Marcus can see you. Lena didn't wait for him to change his mind. She crossed to the door, stepped outside, and sucked in a lungful of cold air. The balcony overlooked the garden, still perfect, still pristine, still fake-looking in the afternoon light. She gripped the railing, her knuckles going white, and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at her chest. This wasn't her life. This was someone else's nightmare. You're scared. Lena jumped. Marcus stood in the doorway, his massive frame blocking the light. I didn't hear you, Lena said. You weren't supposed to. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Marcus said, He'll keep you alive. How do you know? Because he gave his word. Marcus's scarred face was unreadable. And Ethan doesn't break his word. Ever. Even if it cost him everything. Especially then. Lena turned to face him. Why? Because that's who he is. Marcus paused. He's not a good man, but he's not a liar. Before Lena could respond, an alarm shrieked through the estate. Marcus's hand went to his gun instantly. Stay here, he ordered. Then he was gone. Lena stood frozen on the balcony, her heart hammering as chaos erupted below. Shouts, running footsteps, the metallic click of weapons being loaded. She ran back into the war room. Ethan stood in front of the screens, his face carved from stone. What's happening? Lena demanded. They're here, Ethan said. Who? He pointed at the screen. 6 black SUVs were pulling up to the gate. And leading them, stepping out of the first vehicle with a warrant in his hand, was Detective Harrow Pike. Detective Harrow Pike stepped out of the SUV like he owned the world. Tall, confident, badge gleaming on his belt. Behind him, 12 officers fanned out in formation, hands resting on their weapons' eyes, scanning the estate with tactical precision. Lena's breath caught in her throat. He brought an army, she whispered. He brought witnesses. Ethan corrected, his voice cold. So whatever happens next looks legitimate. What are you going to do? Ethan didn't answer. He just walked out of the war room, his footsteps echoing through the hallway, and Lena had no choice but to follow. Marcus met them at his front door, his expression grim. Orders, he asked. Let them in, Ethan said. Marcus's scarred face registered surprise for half a second. You're serious. Let them in, but keep everyone armed and visible. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Lena grabbed Ethan's arm. You can't just let them walk in here. If I don't, they'll break down the gate, and this becomes a standoff. Ethan pulled his arm free gently. Pike wants a show. I'll give him one. And me. You stay quiet. You stay close. And you don't say a single word without my permission. Before Lena could argue, the front door swung open. Detective Pike walked in like he was entering a crime scene, his eyes sweeping the entryway with practiced ease. He was in his late 40s with graying hair and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Mr. Cole, Pike said, his voice smooth. Thank you for cooperating. I don't cooperate, Ethan said flatly. I comply with legal warrants. There's a difference. Pike's smile widened. Of course. He held up a folded document. This warrant authorizes us to search your property for Lena Brooks, wanted for questioning in connection with the murder of Joseph Carver. Murder? Lena gasped before she could stop herself. Pike's gaze shifted to her, sharp and assessing. Miss Brooks, he said warmly, I'm glad you're safe. We've been very worried about you. I didn't kill anyone, Lena said. Of course not. We just need to ask you some questions. Standard procedure. Then ask them here, Ethan said. Pike's smile faltered. I'm afraid that's not how this works. It is now. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Pike studied Ethan for a long moment, and Lena saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was weighing his options, measuring the risk. Mr. Cole, Pike said carefully, I understand you have a certain reputation in this city, But this is a legal matter. I have jurisdiction. You have a piece of paper, Ethan said. I have 12 armed men surrounding this house. So let's skip the posturing and get to what you really want. Pike's jaw tightened. For a second, Lena thought he might actually back down. Then he said, we have evidence linking Miss Brooks to the scene of Joseph Carver's death. Fingerprints, surveillance footage, witness testimony, fabricated evidence. Raven's voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned. Raven stood at the top of the staircase holding her tablet like a weapon. The timestamp on your surveillance footage is manipulated. She continued descending the stairs slowly. The witness statement comes from a man who's been dead for 3 months, and the fingerprints you're referencing were taken from the diner where Miss Brooks worked, not from Carver's apartment. Pike's face went completely blank. I don't know what you think you've uncovered. I know exactly what I've uncovered, Detective. Raven stopped at the bottom of the stairs, including your communications with Victor Petrov, the offshore accounts under your daughter's name, the property purchases in the Caymans. The silence that followed was deafening. Pike's hand drifted toward his weapon. Marcus moved instantly, blocking his path, his own gun suddenly visible. Don't, Marcus said quietly. Pike froze. His officers shifted nervously behind him, uncertain. You're making a mistake, Cole, Pike said, his voice low and dangerous. The only mistake, Ethan said, was thinking you could walk into my home and threaten what's mine. Lena's heart skipped. What's mine? Pike's eyes narrowed. She's not yours. She's a witness in a federal investigation. Then contact the actual feds, Ethan said, because you're not taking her anywhere. I have a warrant, and I have evidence that you're compromised. Ethan pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was a video file. One call to the FBI and every transaction you've made in the last 5 years goes public. Your career ends. Your family's assets get seized, and you spend the next 20 years in a federal prison. Pike's face went white. You're bluffing. Ethan hit send. Pike's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and Lena watched all the color drain from his face. It was the same video, sent directly to him. A warning. Get out of my house, Ethan said softly. Pike stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned on his heel and walked out, his officers scrambling to follow. The door slammed shut. Silence filled the entryway. Lena's knees went weak. She grabbed the banister to steady herself, her heart racing so fast she thought she might pass out. That was insane, she breathed. That was necessary, Ethan said. He's going to come back. You know that, right? He's going to come back with more people, more warrants, more money. He's not coming back. How can you possibly know that? Ethan pocketed his phone. Because in about 30 seconds, his superiors are going to receive an anonymous tip about his involvement with Petrov's organization. By tonight, he'll be under investigation. By tomorrow, he'll be in custody. Lena stared at him. You already sent it. I sent it the moment Raven confirmed his identity. So this whole thing letting him in the confrontation that was just theater, that was a message, Ethan corrected. To everyone watching, I don't negotiate with corrupt cops, and I don't surrender what's under my protection. There it was again. What's under my protection? Like she was property. Like she belonged to him. Lena's hands curled into fists. I'm not yours. Ethan turned to face her fully. No, he said quietly. You're not. But as long as you're in this house, you're my responsibility. And I take my responsibilities very seriously. Before Lena could respond, Raven's tablet chimed. Her face went pale. Ethan, she said, we have a problem. Bigger than a corrupt detective? Much bigger. Raven turned the tablet around. On the screen was a live feed from a traffic camera downtown. 6 black vans, no markings, no plates, heading toward the estate. Those aren't cops, Marcus said. No, Raven agreed. They're not. Ethan's expression went ice cold. How long, he asked. 15 minutes, maybe less. How many? Well, at least 30, maybe more. Lena's stomach dropped. 30 what? Soldiers, Ethan said. Private military contractors, Petrov's specialty. They're coming here now. Yes, because of me. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time she saw something almost like regret in his eyes. Yes, he said. Lena's breath came in short gasps. This was real. This was happening. 30 armed men were coming to kill her, and she was trapped in a fortress with a man who'd never touched anyone until 2 days ago. "We need to leave," she said desperately. "We need to run." "We don't run, boy," Ethan said, "and they're going to kill everyone here. Not if I kill them first." The certainty in his voice was terrifying. Lena grabbed his arm. "You can't fight 30 men. Watch me." "Ethan." "Marcus," Ethan interrupted. "Full lockdown protocol, every entrance sealed. Snipers on the roof, tripwires on the perimeter, and get the armory open." Marcus was already moving. "Raven," Ethan continued, "I need eyes on every approach. Traffic cams, security feeds, everything." "Already on it." Ethan turned to Lena. "You're going to the basement," he said. "What?" "There's a reinforced room, steel walls, separate ventilation. If this goes bad, you stay there until it's over. I'm not hiding while you... This isn't a negotiation." Ethan's voice was absolute. "You wanted to know why I let you in. This is why. Because I don't let people die on my watch. Not anymore." "Not anymore." The words hung in the air like a confession. Lena stared at him, seeing something beneath the cold exterior for the first time. Pain. Old pain, the kind that never really heals. "Who did you lose?" she asked softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "Everyone." Before Lena could ask what that meant, an explosion rocked the estate. The windows shattered, the lights flickered, and through the sudden darkness, Lena heard gunfire. They were already here. Ethan moved faster than Lena thought possible. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back of the house, his grip firm but not painful. Behind them, Marcus was shouting orders, and Lena heard the metallic sound of weapons being loaded, safeties clicking off. Another explosion, closer this time. The floor shook beneath her feet. "They're breaching the south wall," Raven's voice crackled through a radio. "3 entry points. I'm sealing the interior doors." Ethan didn't slow down. He pulled Lena through a hallway she'd never seen before, down a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. At the bottom was a steel door with a biometric lock. Ethan pressed his palm against the scanner. The door hissed open. Inside was a room that looked like a bunker. Concrete walls, emergency supplies, a bank of monitors showing live feeds from every camera on the property, and guns. So many guns. "Stay here," Ethan said. He started to leave. Lena grabbed his hand. The touch shocked them both. Ethan went completely still, staring down at where her fingers wrapped around his wrist. "Don't die," Lena whispered. Something flickered in his eyes, something almost human. "I don't plan to," he said. Then he was gone. The door sealed behind him with a heavy clang. Lena stood alone in the bunker, her heart hammering, her mind racing. She turned to the monitors. On screen, she watched chaos unfold. Men in tactical gear poured through the breached wall, moving with military precision. Marcus and his team met them with gunfire, and Lena watched bodies drop on both sides. She pressed her hand against her mouth, fighting the urge to scream. This was her fault, all of this. Joseph had given her the drive to protect it, and instead she'd brought death to the only place that had offered her safety. On another monitor, she saw Ethan. He moved through the estate like a ghost, appearing behind attackers, taking them down, with brutal efficiency, disappearing before anyone could respond. He wasn't just fighting, he was hunting, and he was terrifyingly good at it. A new voice crackled through the radio system, cold, accented, amused. "Mr. Cole," the voice said, "this is unnecessary bloodshed." Ethan's voice responded, calm and controlled. "Then leave." "You know I can't do that." "Then die here, Victor." Victor Petrov. The name sent ice through Lena's veins. "I'm not here for you," Petrov said. "Just give me the girl and the drive and this ends." "No. You're willing to sacrifice your men for a stranger." "I'm willing to sacrifice your men for my word," Ethan replied. Petrov laughed. "You've changed, old friend. There was a time when you understood business, when you understood that some things aren't worth dying for." "That was before." "Before what?" Ethan didn't answer, but Lena heard the weight in his silence, the grief. "Last chance, Cole," Petrov said. "Send her out or I burn this entire estate to the ground." "Try." The radio went dead. On the monitors, Lena watched Petrov's men regroup. They weren't retreating. They were preparing for something worse. Then she saw it. One of the attackers was carrying something that looked like a rocket launcher. "No," Lena breathed. She grabbed the radio on the wall, her hands shaking. "Ethan, they have..." The explosion cut her off. The entire bunker shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The monitors flickered but stayed on. Lena watched in horror as half of the estate's east wing collapsed. Flames erupted. Smoke billowed. And through it all, Ethan kept moving. He appeared on the roof, silhouetted against the fire, and Lena watched him take aim with a sniper rifle. One shot. The man with the rocket launcher dropped. But there were too many. Even Ethan couldn't fight them all. Lena's hands trembled as she watched Marcus go down, a bullet catching him in the shoulder. He kept fighting, but he was slowing. They were losing, and it was her fault. She looked around the bunker desperately. There had to be something she could do. Something that didn't involve hiding while people died for her. Her eyes landed on a radio transmitter. Next to it, a handwritten note in Ethan's precise handwriting. Emergency frequency. FBI direct line. Lena's heart raced. She grabbed the radio, switched to the frequency, and pressed the transmit button. "This is Lena Brooks," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm at the Cole estate on Riverside Drive. We're under attack by Victor Petrov's organization. We have evidence of human trafficking, police corruption, and..." A hand grabbed the radio. Lena screamed. She spun around. Raven stood behind her, blood running down her face from a cut above her eyebrow. "What are you doing?" Raven demanded. "Calling for help." "You just told them exactly where you are." "They already know where I am. They're blowing up the house." Raven's expression shifted. For a moment, Lena thought she might actually agree. Then Raven grabbed her arm. "We need to move. Now, what, why?" "Because Petrov's men just breached the basement level." Lena's blood went cold. "That's impossible. The door, they're not using the door." On the monitor behind them, Lena saw it. Men cutting through the concrete wall with some kind of industrial torch. Sparks flew. The wall was giving way. "How long?" Lena whispered. 2 minutes, Raven said. "Maybe less." She pulled open a panel in the wall, revealing a narrow tunnel. "Where does that go?" Lena asked. "Emergency exit leads to the garage." "And then what?" "And then we run." Lena looked back at the monitors. Ethan was still fighting, still moving, still alive. But for how much longer? "I can't leave him," Lena said. "He told me to get you out if it came to this." "I don't care what he told you." "Lena, I'm not running anymore." The words burst out of her raw and desperate. "Everyone who's tried to help me has died or gotten hurt. Joseph, Marcus, now Ethan. I'm done hiding." "Then you're going to die. Maybe that's better than living with more blood on my hands." Raven stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something Lena didn't expect. She handed her a gun. "Safety's off," Raven said. "Point and shoot. Don't hesitate." Lena took the weapon with trembling hands. It was heavier than she'd expected. More real. Behind them, the sound of cutting metal grew louder. Raven moved to the door, her own weapon raised. "Stay behind me," she ordered. The wall exploded inward. 3 men rushed through the opening, weapons raised. Raven fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. 2 men dropped. The third dove for cover. Raven moved like water fluid and fast flanking him before he could react. 1 shot. He went down. Lena stood frozen, the gun shaking in her hands, her ears ringing. "Move," Raven shouted. They ran, through the tunnel, up a ladder, into the garage where 3 black cars sat waiting. Raven threw open the driver's door of the nearest one. "Get in." Lena climbed into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life. Raven slammed her foot on the accelerator, and the car shot forward, smashing through the garage door into the night. Behind them, the estate burned. Gunfire still echoed through the darkness. And somewhere in that chaos, Ethan Cole was still fighting. Alone. The car screamed through the streets. Raven's hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Lena twisted in her seat, looking back at the orange glow lighting up the sky behind them. The estate was burning, and Ethan was still inside. "We have to go back," Lena said. "No, he's going to die." "He gave me direct orders." Raven's voice was sharp, controlled. "Get you out, keep you safe. That's what I'm doing." "I don't care about his orders." "Well, I do." Raven took a corner so hard the tires screamed. "Because Ethan doesn't give orders, he doesn't mean. And if he told me to get you out, it's because he has a plan." "What plan?" "Getting himself killed." Raven didn't answer. She just drove faster. Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Unknown number. She answered. Hello. Miss Brooks? The voice was smooth accented, familiar. Victor Petrov. Lena's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I get everything I want eventually, Petrov said, and right now I want you to listen very carefully. Go to hell. In 3 minutes I'm going to execute Ethan Cole. Unless you turn yourself in. Lena's breath stopped. You're lying. Am I? There was a sound of movement, then Ethan's voice strained, angry but alive. Lena, don't! The sound cut off abruptly, a sickening thud, then silence. He's still breathing, Petrov said calmly, but that can change very quickly. The choice is yours. Lena's hands trembled so badly she almost dropped the phone. Where? She whispered. Lena, no, Raven started. Where? Lena shouted into the phone. Petrov laughed softly. The old shipping warehouse. Pier 17. You have 30 minutes. Come alone or I put a bullet in his skull. The line went dead. Lena turned to Raven. Pier 17. Absolutely not. He's going to kill Ethan. It's a trap. I don't care. Raven slammed on the brakes so hard Lena lurched forward against the seatbelt. They sat in the middle of an empty street, the engine idling, the city quiet around them. You care, Raven said quietly. That's the problem. Lena's throat tightened. What? You care about him and he cares about you, and that makes both of you stupid. He doesn't care about me. He barely knows me. Raven turned to look at her, and for the first time there was something almost like sympathy in her ice blue eyes. Ethan Cole hasn't touched another person in 23 years, Raven said. Not a handshake, not a pat on the shoulder, nothing. He built his entire life around staying untouchable. Lena's breath caught. Why? Because the last person he touched died in his arms. The words hit Lena like a physical blow. Who? She whispered. His sister. Elena. Raven's voice was flat, clinical. She was 19. He was 23. She got caught in the crossfire of a deal gone wrong. Took a bullet meant for him. He held her while she bled out on a warehouse floor. Lena's eyes burned. He blamed himself, Raven continued, swore he'd never let anyone get close enough to die for him again. And for 23 years he kept that promise. Until you. I didn't ask him to. No, you didn't, but he carried you through gunfire anyway. He touched you, held you, broke a vow he'd kept for over 2 decades. Raven's gaze was steady. So yes, he cares. And that's why walking into Petrov's trap is the worst thing you could do. Lena's mind raced. She thought about Ethan's face when he'd carried her. The coldness, the control, the way his hands had been so careful, like he was terrified of breaking something precious. What do I do? Lena asked, her voice breaking. Raven was quiet for the long moment. Then she said, we call in reinforcements. Who? Raven pulled out her phone and dialed. It rang once. This is Raven Knox, she said. Authorization code Delta 79er. I need immediate extraction and tactical support at Pier 17. Target is Victor Petrov. Hostage situation. Armed resistance expected. A pause. Yes, I understand the risks. Do it anyway. She hung up. Lena stared at her. Who did you just call? People who owe Ethan favors, Raven said. Big ones. How long until they get here? 20 minutes. We only have 30. Then we better drive fast. Raven hit the accelerator. The warehouse loomed ahead like a skeleton against the night sky. Broken windows, rusted metal, graffiti covering every surface. Raven killed the engine 2 blocks away and turned to Lena. Listen to me very carefully, she said. When we go in there, you do exactly what I tell you. No arguments, no heroics. Understood? Lena nodded. I need to hear you say it. I understand. Raven handed her a small earpiece. Put this in. Stay on the channel. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. Lena fitted the earpiece into her ear. And if you tell me to leave Ethan, I won't, Raven said simply, because I don't leave him either. They got out of the car. The night air was cold, sharp, tasting of salt and rust. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs as they approached the warehouse. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made her flinch. Raven moved like a predator, silent, imprecise, her weapon held low and ready. They reached the entrance. The door hung open, creaking slightly in the wind. Beyond it, darkness. "Stay behind me," Raven whispered. They slipped inside. The warehouse was massive, filled with empty shipping containers and abandoned machinery. Moonlight filtered through the broken roof, casting everything in silver and shadow. And in the center of it all, under a single hanging light bulb, Ethan knelt on the concrete floor. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. His shirt was torn, revealing bruises already forming across his ribs. But he was alive. Lena's breath caught. "Ethan," she whispered into the earpiece. His head snapped up. Their eyes met across the distance, and Lena saw rage, pure absolute rage. Not at Petrov, at her, for coming. "Miss Brooks," Petrov's voice echoed through the warehouse. Right on time. He stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 6 armed men. Tall, silver-haired, smiling like this was all a game. "I'm here," Lena called out. "Let him go." In a moment, Petrov walked closer to Ethan, studying him like a specimen. "First, I want you to understand something. Ethan and I go way back. We built empires together, destroyed enemies together. We were brothers once." "Brothers don't betray each other," Ethan said, his voice rough. "No, they don't." Petrov's smile faded. "But you betrayed our code. You let weakness in. You let her matter." He kicked Ethan hard in the ribs. Ethan grunted but didn't cry out. Lena started forward. Raven grabbed her arm. "Not yet," she hissed. "But trust me." Petrov circled Ethan slowly. "I gave you a chance to walk away, to give her up and keep your empire intact. But you refused. Do you know what that makes you?" "Better than you," Ethan said. Petrov laughed. Then he pulled out a gun and pressed it against Ethan's temple. "Last chance," Petrov said. "Tell me where the original drive is, and I'll make this quick." "Go to hell." Wrong answer. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Lena screamed, but Ethan was still kneeling, still breathing. Petrov had fired into the air. "Dramatic, I know," Petrov said, "but effective. Now, Miss Brooks, come here, or the next bullet goes through his skull." Lena started to move. Raven's grip tightened. "Wait for it." Wait for what? 3, 2, 1. The warehouse exploded with sound. Flashbangs detonated. Smoke grenades hissed. And through the chaos, men in tactical gear poured in from every entrance, moving with military precision, weapons raised, shouting commands. Petrov's men scattered. Gunfire erupted. Raven pulled Lena down behind a shipping container. "Stay here." Then she was gone, disappearing into the smoke. Lena pressed herself against the cold metal, her ears ringing, her heart racing. She couldn't see Ethan, couldn't see anything through the smoke and darkness. Then a hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun around, raising the gun Raven had given her. Marcus stood there, blood-soaked and battered, but very much alive. "Where's Ethan?" he shouted over the gunfire. "Center of the warehouse, Petrov has him." Marcus nodded and disappeared into the smoke. Lena didn't think. She just ran. Toward the center, toward the light, toward Ethan. The smoke cleared enough for her to see him. He was on his feet now, his zip ties cut, fighting hand to hand with one of Petrov's men. Even injured, even outnumbered, he moved like violence incarnate. A punch, a kick, a brutal elbow strike. The man went down. Ethan grabbed his weapon and turned his eyes scanning the chaos until they found Lena. "Get down!" he roared. Lena dropped. A bullet whizzed over her head. Ethan fired. The shooter fell. Then Ethan was moving toward her, crossing the distance in seconds, pulling her to her feet. "Are you insane?" he demanded, his hands gripping her arms. "I told you to stay away." "He was going to kill you. Better me than you." The words hung between them. Before Lena could respond, Petrov's voice cut through the noise. "How touching." Everyone froze. Petrov stood on a metal catwalk above them, holding Raven. His arm was wrapped around her throat. A gun pressed against her temple. Raven's face was calm, but Lena saw blood running down her neck. "Drop your weapons," Petrov ordered. "All of you." Marcus's men hesitated. "Now." Petrov's finger tightened on the trigger. "Or I paint this warehouse with her brains." Slowly, the weapons clattered to the concrete. Ethan didn't move. His gun stayed raised, aimed directly at Petrov's head. "You won't make that shot," Petrov said. "Not before I kill her." Yes, I will, Ethan said calmly. You're bluffing. I never bluff. Petrov's smile faltered. For the first time, Lena saw uncertainty in his eyes. She's your friend, Petrov said. Your most loyal soldier. You won't risk her life. I've risked worse, Ethan said, and Raven knows it. Raven's voice was steady. Take the shot. No, Lena gasped. Take it, Raven shouted. Ethan's finger moved to the trigger. Time seemed to slow. Then Raven moved. She drove her elbow back into Petrov's ribs, twisted out of his grip, and dropped off the catwalk. She fell 15 feet, hit the concrete hard, didn't move. Ethan fired. The bullet caught Petrov in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled, but didn't fall. Instead, he ran, disappearing through a back exit, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Marcus started after him. Let him go, Ethan said. What, why? Because he's bleeding out. He won't make it 3 blocks. Ethan was already moving toward Raven, dropping to his knees beside her. Raven, talk to me. Raven's eyes fluttered open. Did you make the shot? She whispered. Close enough. Good. She coughed and blood flecked her lips. Next time, aim better. There won't be a next time. Liar. Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked up at Marcus. Get the medic, now. Marcus was already running. Lena knelt on Raven's other side, her hands shaking. She's fine, Ethan said. She's too stubborn to die. I can hear you well, Raven muttered. Despite everything, Lena almost laughed. Then she heard sirens. Getting closer. Ethan heard them too. FBI, he said quietly. Your call worked. Is that bad? Depends on what you tell them. Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Trust. He was trusting her to make the right choice. I'll tell them the truth. She said, which is that you saved my life. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, something warm, something almost like hope. Before he could respond, federal agents poured into the warehouse, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Hands up, everyone on the ground. Ethan stood slowly, his hands raised. Marcus did the same. Lena raised her hands, her heart racing. An agent approached her, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. Lena Brooks, the agent asked. Yes. I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. Are you hurt? No, but she is. Lena gestured to Raven. She needs a hospital. Medics are on the way. Chen's gaze shifted to Ethan. And him. He protected me. From Victor Petrov. Yes. Chen studied Ethan for a long moment. Then she lowered her weapon. Mr. Cole, she said, we need to talk. I assumed as much, Ethan replied. Downtown, official statement, tonight. Am I under arrest? Not yet. Chen's expression was unreadable. But that could change depending on what you tell me. Ethan nodded. He turned to Lena one last time. Thank you, he said it quietly. For what? For being brave enough to call for help, even when I told you not to. Then he walked away, flanked by federal agents, disappearing into the night. And Lena stood alone in the warehouse, surrounded by smoke and blood and the wreckage of a war she never asked to fight, but somehow survived. The hospital was quiet at 3 a.m. Lena sat in the waiting room, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring at nothing. Raven was in surgery. Stable, they said. Lucky, they said. Marcus had refused treatment until Raven was out of the OR. He sat across from Lena, his shoulder bandaged, his face carved from stone. He'll be okay, Marcus said suddenly. Lena looked up. What? Ethan, he'll be okay. He's been through worse. Has he? Marcus nodded. After Elena died, he disappeared for 2 years, came back different, colder, but alive. Raven told me, Lena said quietly, about his sister. Then you know why he built walls? And why he broke them for me? Marcus met her gaze. He didn't break them for you. You broke them for him. Before Lena could respond, Agent Chen appeared in the doorway. Miss Brooks, she said, we need your statement. Lena stood, her legs unsteady. She followed Chen to a small interview room where another agent sat waiting, a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. This is Agent Torres, Chen said. He's leading the investigation into Victor Petrov's trafficking network. Torres gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Lena sat. We've recovered the flash drive from Ethan Cole, Torres said. Joseph Carver's final evidence. It's comprehensive. What's on it? Everything. Routes, financials, names, dates, enough to dismantle the entire operation. Torres leaned forward. But we need you to testify. Lena's stomach dropped. Testify in court against everyone involved, including Detective Pike. He's already in custody, Chen added. Arrested 2 hours ago, but your testimony will ensure he stays there. What about Ethan? Lena asked. Torres and Chen exchanged glances. Mr. Cole is complicated, Torres said carefully. He's cooperating fully, providing information we've been trying to get for years. But his business dealings have always existed in a gray area. He saved my life. We know, and that counts for something. Torres paused. But you should know some people in the Bureau want to prosecute him for harboring a witness, for vigilante justice, for a dozen other things. That's insane. That's politics, Chen said quietly. Lena's hands curled into fists. What happens to him? She asked. That depends, Torres said, on a lot of factors, but mostly on whether the evidence he's providing leads to convictions. And if it does, then maybe we look the other way on the rest. It wasn't a promise, but it was something. Lena took a deep breath. I'll testify, she said. I'll tell you everything, but I want immunity for Ethan. Torres raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. Yes, I am, because without me, you don't have a credible witness. Joseph's dead. Ethan's a known criminal. Pike's compromised. I'm the only clean testimony you've got. Chen smiled slightly. She's not wrong. Torres sighed. I'll see what I can do. That's not good enough. It's the best you're going to get. Lena stared at him. Then she stood. Then I want to see Ethan. Before I say anything else, I want to see him. Torres started to object. Chen put a hand on his arm. Let her. Sarah, let her. We owe him that much. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. They brought Lena to a different room, smaller, colder. Ethan sat at a metal table, his hands folded in front of him, his expression unreadable. When Lena walked in, his eyes tracked her movement, and she saw a relief flash across his face before he locked it down. 5 minutes, Chen said, closing the door behind her. Lena and Ethan sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then Ethan said, You shouldn't have come back for me. I know. You could have died. So could you. That's different. Why? Lena's voice rose. Because your life matters less than mine. Because you're so used to being alone that you forgot people actually care about you. Ethan's jaw tightened. I haven't forgotten, he said quietly. I just stopped believing it was possible. Well, believe it, because I care. Raven cares. Marcus cares. We all risked everything to get you out of there. I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to. Lena leaned forward. You broke a 23-year vow for me. You think I was going to let you die alone in a warehouse? Ethan's mask cracked, just for a second, but Lena saw it, saw the pain beneath, the loneliness, the fear. Elena would have liked you, he said softly. Lena's throat tightened. Yeah, she always said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit. A ghost of a smile. Guess she was right. Guess she was. They sat in silence again. Then Ethan said, What are you going to tell them? The truth. All of it. Every word. Even the parts that make me look bad. Especially those, Lena said, because the parts that make you look bad are the same parts that prove you're human. Ethan's hands unclenched. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain, vulnerable, human. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Do what? Care about someone without destroying them. Lena reached across the table, slowly, carefully, and placed her hand over his. Ethan flinched, but he didn't pull away. Then I'll teach you, Lena said. And for the first time in 46 years, Ethan Cole believed he might actually survive it. 6 months later, Lena stood in front of a federal courthouse, her hands shaking despite the warm spring sunshine. The trial had lasted 14 weeks. 14 weeks of testimony, of reliving every moment, of watching Detective Pike's face turn to stone as the evidence mounted against him. Today was sentencing. You ready? Raven asked beside her. Lena looked at her friend. Raven had recovered fully from her injuries, though she still moved a little slower when it rained. The scar on her neck was visible when she turned her head, a thin white line that she refused to hide. No, Lena admitted, but I'm going anyway. They walked up the courthouse steps together. Inside, the gallery was packed. Media, victims' families, federal agents, and in the back row, trying to look inconspicuous and failing completely, Marcus sat with his arms crossed. He nodded when he saw them. Lena scanned the room looking for the one person who mattered most. Ethan wasn't there. He hadn't been allowed in the courtroom since giving his testimony 3 months ago. Some technicality about ongoing investigations. Some bullshit about protecting the integrity of the case. Lena knew the real reason. The FBI still didn't trust him. Probably never would. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison entered her expression, carved from granite. She'd presided over the entire trial with zero tolerance for games, and both the prosecution and defense had learned quickly not to test her patience. Be seated, Morrison said. Everyone sat. Pike was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked older, smaller. The arrogance had been burned away, leaving only exhaustion. He didn't look at Lena. Couldn't, maybe. Detective Harrow Pike. Judge Morrison began reading from her notes. You have been found guilty on 23 counts, including racketeering, human trafficking conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence? Pike stood slowly. For a long moment, he was silent. Then he said, I was trying to protect my family. His voice cracked on the last word. I know that doesn't make it right, he continued. I know what I did was unforgivable. But everything I did, every choice I made was to keep my daughter safe, to give her a future. By selling other people's daughters, Morrison's voice was ice, by enabling the trafficking of children. Pike's head dropped. No, he whispered. There's no excuse. I know that. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then she said, 40 years, federal prison, no possibility of parole for 25 years. Pike's knees buckled. The bailiff caught him. Lena felt nothing, no satisfaction, no victory, just emptiness. Because Pike was just one piece, one name on a list that had dozens more. The courtroom emptied slowly. Lena stayed in her seat, staring at nothing, until she felt a hand on her shoulder. Raven. Come on, Raven said gently. There's someone waiting for you. Lena's heart jumped. Where? Parking garage, level 3. Lena ran. Down the courthouse steps. Through the security checkpoint. Into the concrete maze of the underground parking structure. And there, leaning against a black car that probably cost more than most people's houses, was Ethan Cole. He looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. He wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, but his tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up. It was the most casual she'd ever seen him. You weren't in there, Lena said, slowing to a walk as she approached. I was asked not to be, Ethan replied. Apparently my presence is inflammatory to the jury. That's ridiculous. That's politics. He straightened as she stopped in front of him. How are you tired? It's over now. Is it? Lena searched his face. They still haven't cleared you. Torres said the investigation into your business dealings could take another year. Could take forever, Ethan corrected. But I'm not worried. Why not? Because I have the best lawyer in the city, and more importantly, I have leverage. Lena raised an eyebrow. What kind of leverage? The kind that comes from providing evidence that led to the arrest of 73 individuals involved in human trafficking across 4 states. Ethan's expression was calm. The FBI doesn't want to prosecute me. It would make them look incompetent. Better to let it quietly disappear. And if it doesn't, then I'll deal with it. He paused. But right now I'm more interested in how you're dealing with it. Lena's throat tightened. The truth was she wasn't dealing with it well at all. She had nightmares. Woke up screaming. Couldn't walk past the diner where Joseph used to sit without feeling sick. The FBI had offered her witness protection. A new name, new city, new life. She'd turned it down because running felt like letting them win. I'm managing, she said finally. Liar. The word was gentle, not an accusation, just truth. Okay, Lena admitted. I'm barely holding it together. Happy? No. Ethan stepped closer. But I understand it. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Ethan said, I have something for you. He reached into the car and pulled out a folder. Lena took it confused. What is this? Open it? She did. Inside were legal documents, property deeds, business licenses. Her name was on all of them. I don't understand, Lena said. The diner where you worked is being demolished, Ethan said. Too many bad memories for the neighborhood. So I bought the property and the 3 buildings adjacent to it. Lena's breath caught. Why? Because you need something to rebuild, something that's yours, something they can't take away. He paused. I thought maybe a community center, job training programs, support services for trafficking survivors. Lena stared at him. You did this for me. I did it for Elena, Ethan said quietly. She always wanted to help people. I never gave her the chance, but maybe this is how I finally do. Tears burned Lena's eyes. She looked down at the documents at her name printed in official legal text and felt something crack open in her chest. Not pain, hope. I don't know how to run a community center, she whispered. Then learn. You've got time. I don't have money. Yes, you do. The center's fully funded for 5 years. After that, we'll figure it out. Ethan met her gaze. If you'll let me. Lena's hands trembled. She set the folder on the hood of the car and stepped closer to him. Ethan Cole, she said, are you asking to be part of my life? I'm asking if I can try, he replied. I'm not good at this. I don't know how to be close to people without hurting them, but I want to learn, if you're willing to teach me. Lena reached up and touched his face. He went very still. His eyes closed and she felt him lean into her palm just slightly like a man starving for touch, learning to trust it again. I'm willing, she whispered. Ethan opened his eyes, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw no walls, no barriers, no fear. Just a man trying to figure out how to be human again. Thank you, he said. Then he kissed her. It was careful, tentative, like he was afraid she might disappear. But Lena kissed him back, and she felt him relax, felt the last of his control slip away, felt him finally let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was real. When they pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I've never done this before, he admitted. I know. I'm going to be terrible at it. Probably. You're very reassuring. Lena laughed, and it felt like breathing after being underwater for months. Come on, she said. Let's go to see Raven. She's probably timing us to see how long it takes before you panic. I'm not going to panic. You're already panicking. I'm strategically assessing you're panicking. Ethan smiled, actually smiled, and Lena realized she'd never seen him do that before. It changed his entire face, made him look younger, lighter, almost happy. 3 months after that, the community center opened. It was nothing fancy, just a refurbished building with fresh paint and sturdy furniture and a sign out front that read Elena's Place. Lena had wanted to argue about the name. Ethan had insisted. She deserves to be remembered for something other than how she died, he'd said. So Lena had agreed. The opening day was chaos. Good chaos. Over 100 people showed up. Families, survivors, local business owners offering support. Marcus ran security, trying to look intimidating, while a group of kids asked him approximately 8,000 questions about his scar. Raven managed the tech systems, setting up computers and internet access and databases for tracking resources. And Ethan stood in the back, watching everything unfold, his expression unreadable. Lena found him there as the sun started to set. You okay? She asked. I'm remembering, Ethan said quietly. What? What it feels like to build something instead of destroy it. Lena slipped her hand into his. He laced their fingers together without hesitation. 4 months earlier, that simple touch would have been impossible. Now it was natural. She'd be proud of you, Lena said. I hope so. They stood together, watching people move through the center, watching lives begin to rebuild. Then a woman approached them, mid-20s, thin, nervous. Excuse me, she said. Are you Lena Brooks? Yes. I'm Sarah. I was part of Petrov's operation. I saw your testimony on the news, and I thought maybe... She trailed off, her voice shaking. Lena understood immediately. She let go of Ethan's hand and stepped forward, giving Sarah her full attention. You're safe here, Lena said gently. Whatever you need, we'll help you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I don't know where to start. Start with today. That's all any of us can do. Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. Lena walked her inside, introducing her to Raven, getting her set up with resources, with support, with hope. Ethan watched from the doorway. Marcus appeared beside him. She's good at this, Marcus observed. She's extraordinary, Ethan corrected. You finally figured that out. I figured it out the moment she collapsed at my gate. Ethan paused. I just didn't want to admit it. Why not? Because admitting it meant accepting that I wanted something I thought I could never have. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Elena would have kicked your ass for waiting this long. Ethan laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, he agreed, she would have. Inside the center, Lena was helping Sarah fill out intake forms when she felt eyes on her. She looked up. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Pride. Not the cold, calculated pride of a business deal closed. Real pride. Warm. Human. Alive. Lena smiled. Ethan smiled back. And in that moment, surrounded by people rebuilding their lives, Lena realized something. She'd spent 6 months running from her past, 6 months testifying against monsters, 6 months wondering if she'd ever feel safe again. But standing here in this center named after a girl who died too young, surrounded by survivors finding their strength, holding the gaze of a man who'd learned to touch it again because of her, she finally did feel safe. Not because the danger was gone. It would never be completely gone. But because she'd learned that safety wasn't about hiding from the world. It was about building something strong enough to withstand it. 1 year after the trial, Lena stood in the same courthouse, but this time she wasn't testifying. She was witnessing. Viktor Petrov's trial had taken months to prepare. He'd been found 3 weeks after the warehouse incident, bleeding out in an abandoned building, barely alive. The FBI had saved him, so they could prosecute him. Today, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on all counts. Life in prison without parole. Petrov showed no emotion as the sentence was read. But when they let him out of the courtroom, he looked directly at Lena and smiled. It was a cold, dead smile that promised this wasn't over, that men like him always had contingency plans. Lena didn't look away. She held his gaze until he was gone. Then she turned and walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine where Ethan was waiting. Done, he asked. Done, she confirmed. How do you feel? Lena thought of what it made him. About Joseph, who trusted her with the truth. About Elena, who'd never gotten the chance to rebuild. About Sarah and the dozens of other survivors who walked through the center's doors every week. About Ethan, who'd broken a 23-year vow because he couldn't watch her die. I feel like we won, she said finally. We did. But it doesn't feel like I thought it would. No, Ethan agreed. It never does. They walked to the car together, his hand warm in hers. At the center, a celebration was already underway. 1 year of operation, over 300 survivors helped, dozens placed in jobs housing education programs. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to undo all the damage, but it was something, and something was better than nothing. That night, after everyone had gone home, Lena and Ethan stood alone in the empty center. I have something to tell you, Ethan said. Lena's stomach tightened. What? The FBI closed their investigation into me, officially, this morning. Lena's breath caught. You're cleared. Completely. He paused, which means I can finally do this without it being a conflict of interest. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart stopped. Ethan, I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. You deserve better than a parking garage proposal. Then what? He opened the box. Inside was a key. It's to my house, Ethan said. The real house, not the fortress. I bought a place outside the city. Quiet, safe, normal. He met her eyes. I want you to have a key, so you know you always have a place, with me. Lena's eyes burned. You're giving me a key to your house. I'm giving you a choice, Ethan corrected. Stay at your apartment. Keep your independence. But know that if you want to come home to me, you can. Lena took the key with trembling fingers. I've never had a home before, she whispered. Not a real one. Neither have I, Ethan admitted. Maybe we can figure it out together. Lena looked at the key in her palm. Then she looked at Ethan, at the man who'd been untouchable for 46 years, at the man who'd carried her through gunfire, at the man who'd learned to hold her hand without flinching, at the man who'd built a center for survivors because his sister never got the chance to be one. Okay, she said. Okay, boy. Okay, let's go home. Ethan's face transformed. relief, joy. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious, and Lena felt safe in a way she'd never felt before. Not because he was strong, not because he was powerful, but because he'd chosen to be vulnerable. For her, with her. They left the center together, locking the door behind them, the sign above reading Elena's place, glowing softly in the evening light. 6 months later, Lena moved into Ethan's house permanently. 1 year after that, he proposed. She said yes before he finished asking. They were married in a small ceremony with only their closest friends. Marcus stood as best man, trying not to cry and failing. Raven was maid of honor, armed even in a bridesmaid dress because old habits died hard. During the ceremony, Ethan's hand shook when he slid the ring onto Lena's finger. Not from fear, from wonder, that this was real, that he got to keep her. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ethan kissed his wife like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. And Lena kissed him back, feeling complete in a way she'd never imagined possible. Because she'd learned something in the years since that night at his gate. Love wasn't about being saved. It was about choosing to save each other. Every single day. 5 years after their wedding, Elena's place had expanded to 3 locations across the city. Over 2,000 survivors helped, hundreds of successful prosecutions stemming from their support and testimony, a network of protection that actually worked. Lena ran all of it with Raven's help, while Ethan quietly funded everything and stayed out of the spotlight. He preferred it that way. Preferred to watch Lena shine instead of stepping into the light himself. On the 5th anniversary of the center's opening, they held a gala fundraiser. Lena gave a speech about survival, about rebuilding, about hope. And when she finished looking out at a room full of people who'd found safety because of what they'd built together, she caught Ethan's eye across the crowd. He smiled, that same soft smile he'd given her in the parking garage 5 years ago. The smile that said, "I chose you. I will always choose you." Later that night, lying in bed together, Ethan ran his fingers through her hair and said, "I never thought I'd have this." "Have what?" "Peace," Lena turned to face him. "Do you will stay with you, yes." He kissed her forehead. "You saved me, Lena Brooks. You saved me first. We saved each other." And that, Lena thought, was the truest thing either of them had ever said. They had both been broken when they met, both running from ghosts. Both convinced that safety was something other people got to have. But they'd learned together that safety wasn't a place. It was a choice. The choice to trust. The choice to build. The choice to love someone enough to let them see your scars and believe they wouldn't run. Ethan Cole had spent 46 years never touching anyone. Now he fell asleep every night with his wife in his arms. And Lena Brooks, who'd collapsed bleeding at a stranger's gate with nowhere left to run, had found not just safety, but home. Not in walls or locks or fortress estates, but in the man who'd learned to be human again because she'd shown him it was possible. They didn't just survive their story, they rewrote it together. And that made all the difference.